YouTube? Krishan checking back in with another video. First things first, if you watch this video, go ahead and drop a sub, drop a like, and drop a comment as well. In our first story today, we're going to be looking at Chris Bumstead and Terrance Ruffin. Now, this is very interesting because it's not very often you see a Mr. Olympia training with a second place runner-up to him. But it's glad to see that these guys have no animosity against each other and they're mature enough to be able to train and pose together. But we're going to take this update for what it is, man. In all honesty, you can see how far ahead Chris is from Terrance Ruffin. Terrance is competing in the Arnold Classic, so he's about 3 or 4 weeks out, whereas Chris is about 5 to 6 weeks out of the Mr. Olympia, and Chris is already in better condition than him. But just looking at this for what it is, Terrance is second place to Chris, but you guys can see that he's nowhere near Chris, and I think he doesn't even have a chance to beat Chris. And there's not a knock on Terrance at all. I believe Terrance just has a little more development to do in the upper body. He'll be better. In all honesty, I don't think Terrance should have placed above Brianna Ainslie last year. Last year, Brianna Ainslie was bumping elbows a lot with Chris Bumstead, and they moved him from Chris Bumstead, and they kept him there. They didn't put him back next to Chris after he kept bumping elbows and fighting for the position. But I do think Brianna will be a more serious threat to Chris Bumstead than Terrance will be this year. And I feel like Terrance maybe got a little ahead of him because of his great posing. Brianna is a great poser as well, but Terrance has literally flawless posing. A lot of guys pose and shake a little and they may stumble, but Terrance is just perfect. It flows from beginning to end, reminding me a lot of Lee Labrada. So that's my thoughts on that, man. But hopefully Terrance is able to prove me wrong, but I'm just going to have to go off what I see. Speaking of Brianna Ainslie, we get this physique update from him, and he's actually doing dips. And he was training with Mo Shaban, who is an open-class bodybuilder. I'm pretty sure you guys know him. He competed in almost every show this year to qualify for the Mr. Olympia. But Brianna is looking great, man. He's looking in very great condition. He's even looking better than Terrance, who is also competing sooner than him in the Arnold Classic. But as I've mentioned numerous times, Brianna struggles to stay within that weight cap. That's why he has to get so conditioned so early out just to make sure he's going to hit his weight. Now, Brianna looks great, but the only problem, like I said, he may run into is having to lose some muscle. But if he's able to get into the weight cap early, within like 2 or 3 weeks of the Mr. Olympia, then he's going to be perfectly fine. I think that is exactly what he's going to do. So I'm looking forward to see what Brianna is going to bring to the stage this year. Hopefully, he's able to win that title. I do believe Brianna is still the biggest threat to Chris Bumstead. With recent news of Robert Timms and Brian Jones, I kind of got carried away because of the height. I've seen Brian Jones from the back, and I don't think he could compete with Brianna Ainslie. And really I've kind of just been going with the flow of everyone else, not thinking Brianna can win. But to me, in all honesty, I believe Brianna, if anyone is going to beat Chris Bumstead this year, is going to be between Brianna Ainslie and Robert Timms. And speaking of Robert Timms, he has also been posting a lot of physique updates lately, man. I guess since Texas, his name has got out there a lot more and people are starting to remember him and he's getting a lot more attention. So he's giving the fans what they want. And I think Robert is actually posting better physique updates now. As I told you guys before the Texas Pro, I believe that he was purposely posting pictures with not the best angles and not the best light. But since he won the Texas Pro, he's been posting amazing pictures, such as this front lat spread. I don't think this is something we would have seen before the Texas Pro. So he sees a lot of people talking about him, sees people actually see him as a threat to win that classic physique title, man. And he looks great. I stated in another video that I think Brian Jones will be able to beat him because of the leg size. But as I just mentioned, I don't think Brian Jones will be able to stand with him from the back. Also, Robert has crazy separation in his quads, and Brian Jones doesn't. And it's going to be very interesting, man. But I do believe Robert Timms is going to place above Brian Jones this year. So the top 4 is probably looking like Chris Bumstead, Brianna Ainslie, Robert Timms, Terrance Ruffin, and maybe a Brian Jones. That is off the top of my head. Do not take that as a top 5 prediction, man. We still got a little time before those. And in our next story of the day, we're going to take a look at Derek Lunsford. And honestly, guys, I think this is going to be the year that Derek nails it. As you guys know, he's working with Honey Rampart, who also coached Jeremy Buendia to winning 4 men's physique Mr. Olympias, Phil Heath to winning 7 Mr. Olympias in a row consecutively. So I'm very excited to see what Derek and Honey are going to bring to the stage this year. If Derek is able to bring Kamal or Sean Clarita level conditioning, then I'm pretty sure he'll be able to win that title. The only person that has shape as good as Derek is Keon Pearson. And we're not sure if Keon is going to come in condition. I also don't think Keon can stand with Derek from the back yet. So Keon is kind of a wild card, man. We don't know where he's going to place him. But I think this is going to be the year for Derek. And speaking of 212, let's go ahead and talk about George Peterson because we get this update from him taken from the Redcon one page on Instagram. Also, if you guys use Redcon, you can use my code T20Christian for 20% off. It'll be in the comment section below. But I do believe that George Peterson can win the 212 division, but I honestly don't think he's what they're looking for. He's 5'7", which is actually taller in this division, believe it or not. But I believe they're looking for a shorter, more shapely physique, kind of like Derek Lunsford, Keon Pearson, or like a Sean Clarita. I think George is just so good. He can compete in all of these divisions. But even if George does win in 212, I think eventually he will have to go up to the open division. But George has everything, man. He has a small waist, the best back in the division, and he always come in condition. So he's gonna be a very hard person to beat. He definitely can win, but I don't overall think he's gonna be the look that they will have winning consistently. But George is just so good, man. He can win in almost any division, as you guys can see. And in our next story of the day, we get an update from Justin Rodriguez, who is about 3 weeks away from the Arnold Classic. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to bring to the stage, man. And honestly, I've been thinking about the judging from this year. Brett Wilkin, as well as his train partner, Martin Fitzwater, were smaller guys in these lineups, but they were able to come in conditioned and beat out athletes like Rolly Winkler for Brett and Hassan Mustafa for Martin. So I'm pretty sure that with the way the judging is looking, if a smaller athlete is able to come in shapely and conditioned, they can definitely excel against a person with bigger size. So that's definitely Justin Rodriguez, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do this year. Justin Rodriguez, Regan Grimes, and Patrick Moore are all kind of smaller guys, but I believe, and the way it's looking from the judging, if they come in conditioned enough, they can definitely challenge. And speaking of Regan Grimes, we get this update from him. It's kind of just a side pose. And actually, I think Regan can stack up pretty well against Justin Rodriguez. And looking at Justin Rodriguez at the New York Pro, I think he actually stacked up pretty well against Nick Walker. He didn't just get destroyed. And I know I'm kind of hopping all over the place, but this how it is in bodybuilding. You have to take the pictures for what they are. We have a lot of time in between shows, so we have to do things like this, a lot of speculation, just to keep the sport interesting. But I'm excited to see what Regan Grimes can do. If Regan can stand with Justin and Justin can stand with Nick, then Regan can definitely stand with some of these top guys. Regan got up to 300 pounds in his offseason, so he should have the size. And I'm excited to see what he's going to bring, man. This is going to be a crazy Mr. Olympia. But that's going to be the video for today, you guys. Hope you liked it. Like, comment, and sub. I'm out.